with EU session. Design with EU is a design community that basically helps beginner and intermediate designers by bringing on experienced and knowledgeable designers to come and share their knowledge with us. We've been doing this for more than 2 years, a little more than 2 years, and we have a recording of most of our sessions on our YouTube channel. And it's a really good resource for anybody that wants to learn design or upskill in the design world. So after this session, you can head over to our YouTube channel and watch our videos. But today's session, um, the topic for today's session is fundamentals of brand identity design, and our guest is Ameji. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yes, you are.
Okay, nice. So I'll just do a brief intro about him, and then he can, take over. Ameji is a brand identity designer and art director. He helps early stage startup figure out who they are, how to enter the market, and going with very appealing design systems that attract and convert their ideal customers. So Ameji would be taking us on today's session. Thank you very much. Ameji, you can go ahead.
Hey guys, good evening. Sorry I joined late once again. I was playing football manager and I got carried away. I don't know if there's anyone here that plays that very weird game. But
FM on mobile.
yeah. No, not on mobile, on PC.
Okay, alright.
All right,
Fair
so
enough.
yeah, like she said, my name is Ameji. So that's actually my surname, but I just prefer to use it. My name is actually Anthony Ikojo, but just call
Hello,
me.
Anthony.
So yeah, I am a brand designer. So basically, what that means is that I match business goals and the expectations of the customer daily using design, messaging, copywriting, and also strategy. Um, so yeah, I don't really know how like this session normally goes, but I don't have a presentation put together. So I was just thinking that maybe we could like make it more or less an interactive section. First of all, I'll just start with like basically talking about the fundamentals of brand identity design, and then from there we can then move into like questions, asking asking questions like trying to get some insights and feedback and so on and so forth. So s- I don't know if that works. Does that work?
Yes, it does.
Okay, okay. All right. So basically the fundamentals of brand identity design. So first of all, I'll give a backstory. Um when I started out designing in 2014, Vasto, Vasto, good evening. When I first started out designing in 2014, it was by mere coincidence. So I was so me and my friends, we were around the age of 19, 18, 17 then. I think the youngest among us was 17. So we then said that okay, let us uh, create a startup, a music streaming platform like AudioMark that was particularly like the major unique proposition then was that we're going to be connecting upcoming artists, like the top upcoming artists in each of the sections and each of the categories. We would be connecting them with record labels. So back then we signed deal with like Chocolate City, with there's this other guy, there's one record label like that in Abuja then. There was one gospel record label also. All of them, like there was this DJ, every single thing. Like we just sort of like listed out the whole thing. We met with Ice Springs, we met with MI, we signed a some deal with like meaningful gigs, and then I say meaningful gigs. What was their name? Um, Africori, yeah. That was her name back then. So we did the whole thing, and then for us to now create, we then pieced together all of our money. Then the total amount of money that we raised then was 600K. And then we then hired a back end dev. So for the UI and to just like for the prototype of the mobile app that we wanted to build, we did not have any person to do the design. So all of us were using Photoshop. Like we were taking turns to do the rectangle, the circle, the square, just to show the backend dev that this was the idea of what we wanted to build. And so and that was my first time of ever making use of like a design software. It was Photoshop, the cracked version then that if you press one button, you have to wait for like 2 hours before the thing would like boot. So from there, the whole stuff did not materialize. And then in 2016, when Sapa came knocking, I then started to go back into Photoshop to just sort of create flyer and so on and so forth. All of those things were things that I was doing then to just sort of like get things going. And so every one of us, like I think if you are a designer, like I think for the most part, outside this whole startup part, I think almost all of us would say that we started out designing from like creating a flyer, logo, 3D glass window mock-up, and so on and so forth. As at then, what we were all doing was a form of marketing design. And the thing with the thing with marketing design is that it is very, very specific and it is like direct to brief. So what that means is that you are basically creating designs the based off the brief that has been sent to you, and then like you must follow it to a T. So you would need someone to avoid it, come up with like a concept and then tell you that, okay, this is what I as in want. So then I was doing flyer for every person. There was one time that some cult guys came to meet me that I should design flyer for them when I was in Kogi because I wanted to do this year 7-7. I think that's what it's called. And then I then said no. They then carry gun and point me, and then I didn't have to do the design for them. So all of those things, like I was like designing for I was designing for student associations and all of like and so on and so forth. So like I said, that is like the typical graphic designer. But then later on along the line, and that was in 2020, I then met Sheon Badejo. And he was like running Eximia Design Studio. And then the guy told me that he was a brand identity designer. And I was like, okay, what is like a brand identity designer? And then when he showed me his portfolio, I was like, I used to do this stuff now. That I used to do 3D glass window mock-up. That if you see all of my uh, logos that I used to design then, like you will see, like if it's like all those very, very flashy ones, like the one that there's one tree that is shaking and all of those things. I knew how to design them then. So, but it was when I was speaking with Sean back then that I then realized, oh, that design could actually be something that solves problems. And um, that was where I then started to dabble into brand design. So now, does anyone have any question from the back story before we delve into like fundamentals, Gongo? Any question? Let me see. In case you have any question, you guys are obsessed over this code stuff. Oh. Okay. If there's no question, then let us continue. So basically, yeah, you can unmute or you can like drop in the chat, and then that would still work. Okay, so basically, when it comes to brand identity design, I think the way that most people look at it is they focus on the design aspect of brand identity first, and that's where the problem is. So when it comes to fundamentals, we would have to break down the as in the job title itself, brand identity design. So brand, what is a brand? I think by now almost every single person here should like understand that okay, um, when it comes to when we are saying brand is not like the visual system, it's not the company. A brand is the gut feeling that you associate with like a particular sim, with like a particular company, with like a particular sound, with like a particular um location, and so on and so forth. Like the way that we are as humans, we are heavily influenced um by the meanings that we attach to things, and then that meaning sort of um drives the emotion that we exhibit whenever we come in contact with those things. So that is what the brand is. And some people have like come up with this very catchy marketing phrase that the brand is not what you say it is what they say it is, which is partly true. But then in my own opinion, like I've stated before, the full phrase should be: the brand is not what you say it is alone, it is what you say it is. And if you are able to allow, or if you are able to make if you are able to make your consumers see you the way that you want to say you are. So that's like how me I would describe your brand. So there needs to be this connection between what you say you are and what your customers say you are. So there needs to be that sort of alignment there. The other thing now is now identity. So while I've talked about brand, now the other thing now is now identity. So when we talk about identity, this is where I like to tell people that you should look at every company as if you are building a human being. And we as human beings, we all know that there are different things that make us unique. We can have similar faces, we could bear similar names, we could like exist inside the same house, we could even be twins. But then at the end of the day, our identity are built off of like different things. It could be minor things, like the way that you laugh can be your identity to some people. Like you can look alike, but then if you are someone that, if you are laughing, you would be hitting somebody's shoulder and all of those things. People will just sort of associate it with you. Like, okay, when if like you should come one day and then you are laughing and then you are just calm, people would assume that okay, something is wrong. You are now off brand. So that identification has to do with like a plethora of things and not just the design or like the visual system. So if you are a football fan here and then you hear the Champions League, that is like the most iconic sound for boys. Like that sound alone is the like it has a lot of power. Like once even you as a player self, if you are like listening to the sound, you'd want to bite somebody next to you or something. So all of those things like visuals, the way that you speak, the way that you sound, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you respond to people, all of those things form like the basic core of your identity as a human being. And the same thing also translates to companies. So don't just look at identity as just visuals. It's like covers a lot of things. So the design aspect now, so the design aspect now. So we have now talked about three things. First of all, the brand, the feeling associated with a company. Then two, the characteristics that we want to elicit that feeling or that sort of description. Then three, which is not the design, which is not the process itself of creating all of these things. So um that is why in summary, whenever people ask me now what do I do, I tell them that I align business goals and customer expectations, because that is basically what your work is as a brand designer. The company wants to make profit, but then for them to make profit they need to sell to people, and they're trying to sell to people, or if like they're trying to acquire people as like their customers, then that means that they must understand these people and must be able to speak with them in a way that they would understand, both visually and also through like their copywriting, messaging, and so on and so forth. So, um, I don't know if we have any questions from this particular short intro, not so short intro of brand identity design. Any questions? Okay. I don't think there's any question. Let me see. Let me check the chat in case. Okay. There's no question. All right. So the other thing now is um what should you do if you want to get started as a brand designer? Like let's say this is like your first time of trying to get into brand design. You have been a graphic designer, you have been creating flyer for 500 naira or for 5k. I think it's 5k now. That's like the accepted price, like the base price for almost all flyers. Um, some people will charge high about Mafo. So let's say you have been doing just marketing design solely, and then now you want to get into brand identity design. How do you go about it? So the first thing is that you have to drop whatever it is you think you know about design and then start to look at design from a problem solving perspective. Now, problem solving perspective means that you have to understand that every company is not whatever it is that they tell you that, oh, we are here to change the world, we are here to do this, we are here to do that. All of those things is cap. The number one thing that companies exist for is money. At the end of the day, when shit hits the fan, they will revert back to what is going to bring them money. Like no one will say that, oh, um, we don't want to, we are, let's say, we are here to solve problems for the very poor Nigerians. We want to bank the unbanked. But then at the end of the day, if the money is coming from the bank, they would tell the banks, they will tell the unbanked that they said that they were going for that or now it will be. You get so like drop everything that you have been told. What companies exist for is to make money. Now, once you have that at the back of your mind, it now sort of arms you the with the conviction of understanding what can you do in terms of strategy and also in terms of communication that will be able to sell this company to their target audience as much as possible, that the marketing efforts will now be easy. So that's like the first thing. The first thing is understanding that companies exist to make profit. And this is for the case of like listen, even non-governmental organizations, they exist to get funded and to be able to make their impact. It doesn't matter whatever it is that they tell you. Money is at the center of every single thing. Now, attracting the right people is now where um attracting the right people to be able to drive the profit of this particular company is now where you now have to also understand how to speak to these people. And in speaking to them, it now ties to like the first point that we talked about, where if you are like able to toast a babe successfully, then that is when okay, she can now like give you her affection, her time, and like so on and so forth. The same thing also applies to with customers. The other thing now is the third thing now is that you should not look at your design as like what will magically fix the problem. So a good brand for any company consists of three parts. Should I say three parts? Let's say four. First of all, it consists a of a superior, not let's not say superior, but a reliable customer care service. Doesn't matter whatever it is that you do, if the customer service of a company is shit. Let's say, for example, now we know about a lot of companies that are doing this whole virtual card stuff, and we understand like how Payday handles their own customers versus how Gray handles their own customers. At the end of the day, Payday for the most part has a very reliable product, but then their customer service was nonsense, and then we see how people responded to that. So that's like the first thing. Number one is like a reliable customer success. Now these are like the foundations of which like the brand of a company is built on. Number two is a functional product. So in as much as you might market yourself as something, if people see your product and it's like the complete opposite, they will have like reservations about you. I don't know if any of you have seen all these Microsoft software videos. If you see how they used to package the software videos with like 3D elements and all of those things, but then once you open their Microsoft apps like Teams now, it's like the most horrible thing. Like it's very, very stupid. So that's like also another issue. So now we have mentioned two things that the brand is built on. Now just to recap, the main reason why we are talking about this is to understand the limitations of what brand design itself can do. So, um, as we said, we you must like a good brand is dependent on a reliable customer success, um, a functional product. Then the next thing now is visually appealing designs. You get. So why visually appealing design comes into play is because of the fact that designs, when they are good, they sort of have this sort of second chain effect on us. Because when you look at some products that, if you look at them on a deeper level, it makes no sense as to why people just love them. But then when you look at the design of like the product itself, you don't understand, okay, that this is like part of the reason why people like really, really love the product. Let's say, for example, now, like the Apple now, like the iOS ecosystem. Once you come in contact with like a MacBook, it doesn't matter if it's not as powerful as like a Dell is like which laptop should we use? Like an Alienware or something. But because of the fact that when you see him as a MacBook, it looks so functional, so clean, minimalist, and every single thing. You're like, okay, this thing is so sleek. As in, it sort of drives you towards it. And that's why you see that companies like Apple, when they are in very, very saturated environments, they focus more on the design more than any other thing again. Because they can't tell you that, okay, our screen is better than the rest. But then once they come and bring you like the best design possible, they're like, these people settle down to make this stuff. And some products actually run on that. Let's say, for example, we look at um, we look at the Nigerian banking sector, all of these like bank apps and so on and so forth. What could have thrived on then was like the simplicity the of like the Kuda Bank app, how young, interactive, and vibrant their social media design systems was. The same thing also with platforms like Abeg, that is now Pocket App. When Abeg first launched, it was basically the design system of like the company that carried it through the whole hype and every single thing. And then lastly, the last component of like a good brand is um, proper marketing team, not motivational Monday. Let us go and sign Sabinus as a content, Abi as an influencer for us kind of marketing, the kind of marketing that sort of goes the deeper level of trying to understand the customers as much as possible, and then like embodying whatever strategy that you have put in place. So now we've talked about um, the major thing that you should keep in mind as a brand designer, and also the things that you should understand are the limitations of your work as a brand designer. So that means that at the end of the day, once you have understood that, okay, all of these things that I am doing, it is to help all of these departments to be able to come into a unified front, it now sort of makes more sense. Because some people might just tell you that, oh, you are supposed to do brand strategy and brand positioning and all of those things. But if you don't understand why you are doing them, what's now the point? You get. So all of these things now, before we now delve into like the brand identity design itself, like the process or like the average process, it's just sort of important for us to like get this back story. I don't know if there's any question. If there's no question, then I can proceed into like brand identity design proper. This one that people are not asking question is now making me feel like all those our lecturers that inside university where we say they go they like life for board. They solve rubbish where you know they. The fourth concept. Joshua, what fourth concept? You can unmute your mic and speak, or Joshua, instead of typing.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, you talked about four things basically. The first one is great customer success, functional products, visually appealing designs that makes a good brand. It's the fourth one that I didn't get.
Proper marketing team.
Okay, proper marketing. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. No problem. So okay, now let us delve into like brand identity design proper now. So the major thing is now um like I said, you can take inspiration from the from as in the job description itself, brand identity design. It is a design that me I focus on last. So when I so let's say you are in a company, or let's say you are like given a project by a client. I think the first thing that you should sort of do is try to understand why all of these things are even sort of necessary. Like try to gauge how important the client sees this particular process of design. Now why this is important is because of the fact that for two reasons. Number one, you don't want to waste your time with someone that doesn't appreciate what you are bringing to the table. That's one. And then two, you have to understand that sometimes it's not every company that is at the right stage for them to like focus or like dwell heavily on like a brand identity design process, because it's like cost money, it takes time or something. But let's say, for example, you have the ID client that ticks all of the boxes. So, what is now the next thing? The first thing is trying to understand and answer the questions. Who are we as a company? What do we do? How do we do it? For who do we do it? Now, understanding all of this, or getting the answers now to all of these questions, will now sort of guide you to now be able to answer the question. Okay, if we say that we are this particular thing, let's say we sell somebody should give me one food. Let's say we sell my mind. We sell my mind. Why do we sell it? Amala. Okay, let us use amala. Okay, we sell amala. Why do we sell it? Because we want to make people happy. We want to spread happiness through food. We have discovered that food makes people happy and so on and so forth. Blah 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 blah. For who do we do it? We as in do it for the younger generation. We don't want them to lose the as in the culture of amala and so on and so forth. And how do we do it? Then that's when you now talk about like how the company, like in this particular case, the amala joint, how they like wake up every day, they pound yam, they do all of the stuff to now make sure that they feed people. So it now helps you to now be able to like get context and clarity to answer the question, in what market are we going to be operating in? Now, this is something that takes time and like takes a lot of practice, but then with time, you will be able to answer that question like after like meeting with the clients and then like having conversations with them. If you have identified the market, like the lowest hanging fruit that they can begin with, because just like how you have for a product, you have the minimum viable product. You also have like the minimum viable market. I'll just call it that, because this is like where there is a low effort and high return for the company, and it is like left to you as a brand designer to be able to identify that. The other thing now is not to identify um, the competition that already exists in that particular um, market, and then for you to then look at how can you then outsmart the competition in that market to now sort of drive profit. So now we have talked about the first one, which is like understanding the business, what they do, how they do it, why they do it, for who did they do it for, who and who are they competing for the attention of their customers for, in what particular market would they be able to like start from. The next thing now is a very key aspect of branding, which is positioning. Now, positioning in the market is more or less like toasting a babe that you see on Twitter. So let's say you see a babe on Twitter, she posted picture and everyone is like, nice babe. Wow, 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 wow. They are like shouting. And then everyone is bringing, and then everyone is now bringing their own things to try and toast her. Some will bring their money, some will bring their some would start to use all those weird lines. You are the apple in my eye, the sugar in my tea. Some will bring Reese, some will bring their muzzle. You I don't know if you understand. Like every single person is bringing their own proposition to this particular babe. But then most times people are caught up in their own web of I think I know what this girl wants. But then most times if you ask the girl that okay, what is like the kind of partner that you want? Most times they don't have the answers, but then sometimes they will just give you clues that okay, I want someone that is funny, someone that is trustworthy, someone that is rich also. So if you have understood that okay, um this is like how people in the market want to be spoken to, then you can down position yourself in that particular way. And this is what was this guy's name? Robert Greene, Art of Seduction. It's like a very, very good book. I think you guys should read it because it sort of helps you to understand marketing to some extent. So what it sort of helps you do also is that once you have seen what people expect, like what they want, you can now say that okay, we want to position ourselves in this particular way. Now, the positioning is not just okay doing what these people want, but also what you think these people need, but they have not discovered yet, and what gap exists. So let's say, for example, if we are still going with our weird analogy of toasting a babe, if every guy that is coming to reach that is coming to toaster is rich, something would have to make you stand out. It could just be the fact that you are a funny person, and then that's what would like just make her to like just like you at the end of the day. The same thing also apply with companies also. All of them will throw their marketing um budgets at you with flyers, with all of those things. Every single good thing they'll throw it at you. But then it might just be that the one, let's say, for example, let us use Chicken Republic now as an example. Among all of the fast food companies that we have inside the country, you have a whole lot of them. Um, KFC, um, Domino's, and so on and so forth. You have all of these companies. All of them are hitting you with like their marketing budget. But then at the end of the day, the one that like people sort of gravitate to now these days is Chicken Republic. And it's just simply because of the fact that Chicken Republic, they are now seen as much more funny, much more relatable. I don't know if you guys can get me. So Chicken Re so if you see Chicken Republic now, I sort of identify that space that okay, people like Nigerians like when businesses are relatable to them, and so they now sort of position themselves in that particular way. It has now been giving them a whole lot of success. All of those things comes with like strong concentration. Sometimes it happened by chance. It could just be that they hired a social media person that was just very good at like it, or it could be like a conscious decision from like a proper brand session that okay, this is what we're supposed to do, and so on and so forth. Now, like I say, sometimes it could be just due to chance. Like they just made one post that blew up, and then they were like, okay, let us keep on making more posts like this. It could be that, but then the whole idea of brand identity design is to now make sure that you are not leaving that stuff to chance. You are now making it something that now becomes part of the company's ethos. Ethos. So when you position a company in like a certain way, it now sort of affects everything inside the company, inside the organization. So if we say that we want to position ourselves as the funny guys of the industry, that is like how we want to present ourselves to the public. Yes, every single person is doing exactly what we are doing. Everyone is selling food. but then we are the guys that know how to crack jokes as we are selling food. This is our own unique proposition. It could be just it like, okay, we are like we are like the guys that are much more relatable and family friendly. That could just be it. Some companies will say that one thing that they can boast of is like their customer care. So they will position themselves as like the only company inside the industry that cares about you very well, and they will attend to you. All of those things are things that form part of like form part of like the that form part of the positioning. So that positioning now, it now sort of affects every single aspect of of the company. So the people and operations, the customer success, it is now going to be a question of asking all of these departments, how can we be able to what is it called? How can we be able to create this particular, or how can we embody this line of thought across every single thing that we do? We can't say that we are a funny company and then we are not allowed to crack jokes during our meeting. It doesn't work that way. I don't know if you get. So yeah. So once you have understood that, it now sort of also influences the design. Okay, if we are saying that we are a funny and playful company, how can we translate this into our design? So that means that we would need to be more daring, try out as many expressive composition systems as possible, try out as many weird ideas as possible. All of those things now sort of affects the visual system. And so when you now get to the visual system, that is now where you now have the logo, the color, the typeface, and all of those things. All of these things now are now going to be built on all of these things that were talked about. The positioning of the company determines the visual system or the visual direction that you will now be going with. And so the other part of brand identity design, that is now where the technicalities comes into play, is now the design itself proper. And there are several courses out there that can sort of really help you out to like get started on logo design um, properly. The basic idea of visual identity design as a system is that you should not rely too much on the logo. There's something that is called a liquid identity. It's like a term. It's like a term coined by Paula Shah. She's like a very she's my design north star. Let us just put it that way. And it is like creating an adaptive system that is like instantly recognizable even without seeing the logo. So let's say, for example, now if you should come in contact with Netflix identity or Nike, like if you should come in contact with like a film that is from Netflix, that to sound that comes from like that comes at the start of like the film is something that tells you, okay, this is like a Netflix film. If you come across a Marvel's film, you would know, like based off how the super uh, based off how these as in people appear in like the movies. If you come across a film like, let's not use film, let us use something else. What else can we use? But but basically the idea is just making sure that you are not relying alone on the logo, because the logo itself, the function is to identify the company and not to communicate any feeling, emotion, or something. Now, this is like a very deep conversation that cannot just be captured under like 1 hour or two. But then the other aspect also of identity design is also the brand messaging and brand storytelling. Now, what that entails is more or less you making sure that as much as possible you are able to communicate what the brand is all about using words. Because at the end, because we as human beings, we have passed down our history with like stories and words. So the same thing also applies to like um companies also. You should be able to communicate with clear direction what the company does, and like in like a very witty way. A very good example of like a company that does this very well, or a brand agency that does this very well, is Johnson Banks. So Johnson Banks will sort of like really, really communicate what the company is all about in like very, very funny, playful ways. So yeah, I think that sort of captures the basic fundamentals of brand identity design. I don't know if anyone has any question, um, or any other comments. Why is that what Yeah, Joshua.
Sorry, please, can you remind me the name of the guy you talked about that has the liquid identity, that wrote something on liquid identity?
No, not right though. Paula Shah doesn't
Okay.
write. So it is not a guy, it's a woman. Paula Shah. Paula Shah. Let me write her name into the chat. So Paula Shah, she's a partner at Pentagram, the largest design agency in the world. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other questions. Any other questions?
Hi, Ameji.
Yeah.
There's one question here for you. It
Okay.
says, how do you measure the success of a brand identity design beyond aesthetic appeal?
Okay, so basically that sort of translates into two parts. Number one is how well does it help the marketing team? That's like the number one indicator. If the marketing team is confused as to what to do with your brand strategy or with your brand design that you have come with, it is not going to help them in any way. And that's when you see the first failure of the brand itself. So that's like the first measure for success. How well does it aid the marketing team? Now, if it aids the marketing team and then they are able to go out there to now sort of um, promote the visual system that you have created, how well is it recognizable and how adaptive is it? So the recognizability of the brand system or like the visual system that you have come up with, if it's consistent with the behavior of the company, it leads to what we call a high brand equity. So a high brand equity is something that people would associate with you as a company, that would sort of aid in driving profit and also in also driving customer loyalty and attraction. Now, one of the key things with brand equity is that it increases the perceived value of your company. So let's say, for example, now, if I should ask you guys that, how much uh, do you think gray is worth? Some of you might say 200 million, some might say 500, some might say 1 billion. All of this is based off what you perceive of like gray as a company because of like how they have presented themselves to the public. So the other thing now is, if you have seen Gray as like a big company and then the logo, whenever you come in contact with it, you now sort of say that, okay, this company is something that I trust. If at the end of the day you have done your brand strategy and all of those things, but then people do not see, but then if like there's no change in the perceived brand equity of the company, then there's a problem. Now, how do you measure the brand equity itself? It is through customer conversations. One of the ways to gauge if like a brand project is a success is that during the strategy phase and during the research phase, you do customer interview to sort of understand how people see the company now before you have done your work. Then once you are done with your work, give it like 2, 3 months. Then go and ask a new batch of customers, what do you think about this particular company? How do you think they are compared to their competitors, and so on and so forth? When you now compare the net scores from like these two different conversations, you can like set some parameters like um, what is what is the likelihood for you to sign up on this particular platform? What is what what is the what what is the average amount that you spend on the platform now as compared to like before the brand was before the brand system was created? How and likely are you to refer the company to someone else? All of these things, when you piece them together, they are now what forms um, some of the indicators that you can now use to assess the brand equity of a company. Now, this is not something that I would advise that if you have not really understood brand identity design, that you should delve into head on. It's just more or less, first of all, learn the fundamentals first, and then you can then start to get into the more sketchy places like brand equity, measurement, and so on and so forth. But yeah, very nice question. So I don't know if there's another question.
Thank you very much. There's one more question here.
Okay.
So it says, how do you handle situations where clients have conflicting ideas about the brand's identity?
Well, like there are two ways to approach it. The thing is that if you understand that you as a brand designer, you are like if you see it as a doctor-patient relationship, everything makes sense to you. Because now you can understand that some patients can be as petulant as hell, sorry. And then when you ask them that what is wrong with you, they will say something, but then it's something totally different that is wrong with them. And even when you are prescribing the solutions to them, they might just tell you that they don't want that is this other thing that they want. So let's say, for example, someone had an accident. You are not saying that give them blood transfusion. They will not tell you that no, they are Jehovah Witness, that they don't used to accept blood, and then you are now stuck. But then you know that this is the right thing for them. How do you now go about it? You can now go through like coming through. You can now go down the route of like reaching a compromise. One, if like there's no other option, you can then come to a compromise because there's always a middle ground when it comes to client and you. It's just a matter of trying to find it. The second thing now is now um s- please, I have a question. Do you guys have, does this thing end like after 1 hour?
No,
Does
it
it?
does not. No, it
Okay,
doesn't. Yeah.
okay, great.
Thank you.
So the other thing now is now leading the client on for them to come to your own point of discovery, like as if they were the ones that did it. So, should we remember when the white people first came into Africa, and then this one will go and discover one bush. Then he will say that he was one that discovered it, but then there were people that were living there before. That's like how it is going to be between you and client at times, because clients, they want to feel involved in it. Understand? So most times, what I do, not most times, or recently, what I started doing is that I will lead the client on. So I know that this is where the right thing is. And why I say it is the right thing is because of my experience. If you don't have the experience, it is better for you to like reach out to like a more experienced brand designer to ask for their input or like this project. They'll like discuss with them and so on and so forth. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's similar to stakeholder negotiation. So it is now more or less coming to meet or like leading them on. So what I mean by that is that um let's say the client is saying that uh, I just want us to market to old people alone. And then you are like, that old people does not really translate into like what would drive profit for you or something. You can then start to ask the client questions like, okay, do you think old people are tech, like do they really understand like mobile apps and so on and so forth? Do you know where they are? Okay, we as in compared to old people, which other demography do you think that would like sort of really help the business to grow faster? Like which ones would be like the easiest ones for you to reach? So once you start to streamline the questions down and then you start to ask them, because these things take practice. So once you've like start to streamline the questions and then you now begin to ask them like, okay, like for them to just try and give you more context as to what ever idea that they have. At the end of the day, they will now be the ones to now say that why don't we try this particular stuff, which is like something that you may have had in mind, and then you can then tell that okay, that this one works, and like this is something that you actually think is like a very brilliant idea. Okay, I'm seeing a question from Joshua Francis. What's the acceptable compromise one can reach without breaching contract or agreement? So in terms of compromise, Joshua, please, is it like in terms of project deliverables or like, I mean, something else? Because what I'm talking about is like the brand system itself, not like your money or something. So I don't know if you can clarify on that a bit, Joshua, please. Just talk now. Open your mic and speak.
Okay, what I wanted to talk about is the aspect of, just like you said, when there is something you know the brand needs to succeed, but then maybe the client doesn't really understand, but you know that this is the solution to the
Yeah.
problem. What's the acceptable compromise that you can do to kind of tell, whatever you can do to make sure you want the brand to succeed, but in order for them to succeed, there's a compromise on your part where you might need to maybe force them to do something or try to convince them or come to a negotiation, where they can permit you or give you the chance to do something. But what's the level that you cannot exceed or you might be able to exceed to make sure that though the brand might not understand, but you want to help, you want to do your job to make sure that you make them succeed?
Well, I think at this stage in my career right now, I can tell clients to fuck off. If you have not gotten to that stage, I don't think you should. You should just collect your money. I'm just being frank. But it gets to a stage where if you are telling clients that, okay, like if it gets to a point where the client is trying to do orga centered design, just do it the way that I say. Whenever I see something that I like, I'll tell you. Once any person should tell me that, I'll just tell you that please, I am not interested in working with you. That is like a non-negotiable compromise for me as at this particular point in time, where if a client is not willing to offer me creative freedom of some sort, and then he's just saying that it is either his way or no other way, I'll tell you that please, I don't want to work with you. So the same thing also applies to you now, that if you are telling your clients that it should not be only their way that will be the only way, it now also falls back to you also, that you can also understand that at times the client has a lot more context than you when it comes to the business at first. It will now be in the process of thought, it will now be in the process of discovery that you now sort of learn more about the brand. And so in that particular instance, you also should be willing to come to compromises at times, because one of the things that I tell my clients from the get-go is that I am not here to do what you like. I am here to do what would work for the brand. And sometimes you might not be comfortable with like some of the decisions, but then you might have to trust me. Like this doesn't mean that it is not a collaborative process, but then let us avoid making use of words like I like. Okay, this one works for us, this one doesn't work for us, because of the fact that every single step that we are taking, it is built on underlying strategy. I don't know if you understand. Does that answer your question, Joshua? Okay, there's one other question here. Is it necessary to have drawing skills to create a great logo? Hmm. Well, this is this is a very, Yeah, for logo itself, yes. So why I'm saying this is because I personally I suck at creating icons for brands. So most times when I once I've created like the underlying visual system, I'll go and meet my friend, maybe Paul or Chisa or Abel, and then tell them that Alpha, please, I am trying to come up with logo ideas for this brand that I am working on. This is like the visual um, language. This is like the strategy that we've done so far. These are some of the major things. This is like the positioning statement, and then we now brainstorm. They will now lead me on like, okay, this is like some. This is like this. These are some options that we could try. So once I've like gotten that particular sketch or something, it's now what to now sort of I then look at how can we apply this system on how can we apply this logo on a system basis. Like so it could be that okay, I have a system that I have like conceptualized based off like the mood board, and then once we say that okay, this is like the system that we want, how can we now create a logo that now sort of fits into that particular system. So that's how me I approach it. And it is not necessarily a must for you to like be very, very good when it comes to drawing, for you to be good at identity design as a whole. But when it comes to creating logo icons, you would have to be good with not just your sketching, but also with like use of things like Illustrator and so on and so forth. Because creating something that is simple, memorable, and unique, something that ticks all of these boxes, it takes like skill, it takes like talent. So if you are not very good with that, it is not the end of the world. You can still collaborate with people that are very good at icon design, but then your own will then be to create the underlying system that that icon will be built on. I think there are a lot of I think Webflow, yeah, Webflow, their current logo, it was not designed by the in-house team, but the underlying system that the logo was built on was created by the in-house team. You get the same thing too with like things like NASA. I think NASA, they had to like contract a logo designer specially for that, but then the agency that was working on it, they already had the underlying system, but they just knew that okay, they were not in the best position to come up with like the logo. So things like that are, you should be willing to collaborate with other people that have strengths in whatever it is that you are doing. So the same thing also, let's say if like the identity system warrants the use of an illustration system, but you don't know how to create illustrations, it's not out of place for you to go and collaborate with like an illustrator to understand, or like a motion designer, like depending on whatever it is that the project requires. So yeah, I don't know if there's any other question. Is there any other question? Any question again?
Thank you so much, Ameji. I mean, this session was really, really nice. So I want to ask if people can connect with you on social media, which is like LinkedIn and Twitter.
Yeah, you can connect with me on Twitter. I don't use my LinkedIn. If you send me a message, yeah, I'll air you. Avatar with me.
Okay. So I'll be dropping a link to his Twitter handle here. And you can follow him, reach out to him there. Thank you so much. We would okay. Praise, you
Yeah,
can
thanks.
unmute and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
Oh,
you can.
please.
Please, I have a question. Like, when you're making your research for like the icons, let's say for example, now you have a food brand that you want to design, and you know
Okay.
that you just want to create an icon. Like, uh, what sites do you go to for ideas? Or how do you even come up with yours? Thank you.
Okay. So this might sound very weird though, but I hate looking at websites for like digital websites, like all of these Pinterest, pre-pick, and so on and so forth. for icon design ideas. And the reason why is because of it limits my creativity. And this is not the same for every single person, but in my own case, this is what I found out, that there are other places to derive inspiration from. One of my favorite places is movies. Anime also is like a very, very good place, because even like taking a walk in nature, you might just come across something very weird, and then like that could be something that just sort of pique your interest. I've designed a logo for my client once because I was boiling egg, and then the shape that four eggs made just came into my head, and just like, this is something that could work. So don't limit yourself to just some sites, because to be very frank, if you want to make design that has a lot of impact, you would sometimes have to do something that people have not done before. You get, and for you to be able to do that, it means that you should be able to think of new ideas, and new ideas will not come from looking at old things. It can come from there, but then the chances are like very low. But if you are going to limit, but if you want just visual references, I mean just usual references, Pinterest is my number one suggestion, because you can look at other icons that are not like fully explored there. Another place also is what's the name of this place? I'm coming. There's this Ijogbo. I'm coming, please. I'm trying to look at. Yeah, I also make use of Pexels, and it's not really like that good, but then it just sort of gives you like other references of images that sort of like relate to like your with like your search. So Pinterest is one, Dribble also is one, Behance also is like where you can get ideas from for some logos. But then all of these things now, there will be things that other people have done before. So you would have to like start to build on that. But then, like I said, thinking outside the box, trying something new will like sort of help out. So some people of recent started to make use of Mid Journey. It's an AI, and then they've started to use it to like come up with like logo concepts for like just brainstorming. And it has been really helpful to some, because of the fact that okay, the AI can piece together multiple things. So I don't know why people hate on AI, but I think it's like a good tool when you work with it. Like when you work with it. So yeah, I don't know any other question.
Because of the time, we will not be taking any more questions. But if you have any, you can reach out to Ameji. Thank you so much for this session. Really appreciate you honoring our invite, and we really appreciate um, everyone for joining this session. Link to our socials are in the chat. You can follow us and subscribe to our channels. You'll be getting information of sessions that we'll be doing, because we do our sessions every Sunday. So thank you guys for joining this session. Have a nice night. Bye, everyone.
All right. Good night, guys. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Bye.